Hey, what's going on, guys? So, as promised to those out there on social media, follow me on Facebook and on Instagram at Seal of God. I'm gonna put this workout out there. It's 100 burpees in 20 minutes, and the difficulty level really is relative. For some people, guys that are going into the military or law enforcement, this should be nothing more than a warm-up to you or a cool down. People in gen population, this might be your workout for the day. This might be difficult. But the good news is that it's completely scalable. What we're doing in 20 minutes is 100 burpees. Every minute on the minute. You start a stopwatch, you do 5 burpees at the top of the minute. And then as soon as the next minute rolls around, you do 5 more burpees. Now, if you're doing 5 burpees and you're actually making these like legit strict burpees, it's probably gonna take you somewhere between 18 seconds to 28 seconds to get it completed. And so what does that mean? That means that you have at least 30 seconds of rest every minute. That means for a 20-minute workout, you're actually resting half the time. 10 minutes of it, you're doing basically nothing. Like I said, this is scalable. So maybe you can't sustain, doing 5 every minute on the minute. So what should you do? Well, take it down a notch or 2. Maybe you should only be doing 3 burpees every minute on the minute, or 2 burpees every minute on the minute, until you can get through the full 20 minutes. And then once you can, graduate, move on to the next. And if you're one of these super in shape guys getting ready to go into buds and you're ready to ship out the next day, who knows, for you, it might be doing 8 to 10 burpees every minute on the minute. Imagine doing that, 10 burpees every minute on the minute for 20 minutes. That's 200 burpees in a very short amount of time. And so I'm already sweating pretty good here. I learned a very valuable lesson. I was just about done with this workout. I had already had it recording, and I wanted to record from start to finish without any cuts, so you guys get an idea of what this looks like. Well, the valuable lesson that I learned was turn your phone onto airplane mode and do not disturb. I got a phone call and right in the middle of the workout. And I thought, maybe it will still record through the phone call. And as I walked up and looked at the camera, I go, oh no, it stopped recording. It's okay. All right, Chad's just gonna get, some extra burpees in today. So I'm about to get this started. I wanna show you guys something here. This is an app that I use. There are many like it. This one's called Tabata Pro. I think it costs like $1. I can put a link in the video description, but what's so great about it is you can set like a certain amount of time that you want to prepare. So let's say like, all right, I wanna get started here. Oh, I hit the minutes. I wanna get started here, I did it again, in the next 25 seconds, all right? And so it'll start preparing me for the next 25 seconds. Hit start.
Starting session.
No.
Stopping session.
Let me show you the rest of this. I can prepare. Then the amount of work that I'm doing, remember, I'm doing it every minute on the minute. And so it'll cycle to 1 minute. You could change that to whatever you want, 45 seconds, a minute and a half. I'm putting rest time 0 because I just want these minutes to keep rolling forward. And then how many cycles or rounds? 20. So this is gonna be 20 minutes of work, 25 seconds to prepare, and then 20 minutes of work, 5 burpees every minute on the minute. And we'll have 100 burpees done in a very short amount of time. And so I'll go ahead and hit start. And so apparently, according to this, I have got 20 seconds before we get started. And so at the top of that minute, I'm going to begin my burpees. And I asked some of you out on social media, since I'm gonna have some downtime between these burpees, to throw me some questions that I could use as prompts. I want you guys to hear this too. I'll put it up to my ear. It goes off. So that's my start, right? So that's one of the cool things about that. So 5 burpees real quick. But I had reached out to some of you on social media asking if you could throw me some questions that I could use as prompts during my rest time, right? Let's see how much time we got. So what did that take me? Got 38 seconds on the clock, so that took me 22 seconds to get through that. So I have more than 30 seconds of rest. And so I asked for questions, and so I'll go through some of these questions as I'm going through the workout here. So here's one right here. What should I study or train to have an edge in buds? So this is a guy that's interested in going to SEAL training. For the uninformed out there, BUDS is an acronym. Stands for Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training. This is really where the rubber meets the road for guys that want to be SEALs. It's something that every SEAL that ever was, is, or will be, must go through. I know another 5 here real quick. And so he's getting ready to go into butts. He's asking, what can I do to have an edge? What can I study? What can I do to prepare? Let me talk about that preparation aspect, right? Let me not get too book smart right now. Let me just focus on the actual physical preparing or skill set. A lot of guys feel like, hey, if I'm going to be a SEAL, I should start getting ready by, getting my scuba license because we're going to be in the water a lot. Or I should be going out there on the shooting ranges and getting in that range time. Well, be careful with that. That is a skill set. And what happens is in SEAL training, they prefer to work with an empty template, a blank slate. That way you don't have any bad habits. And so there are guys, right, that show up to SEAL training and they did a lot of training on their own, on the shooting ranges, right, before any of us showed up. Here we go. This is advice that I received from my mentor, Navy SEAL Scott Helvis, to not try and spend time, doing those types of things, whether it be diving or, shooting on the ranges. Why? They want an empty template to work with. There are guys, when you show up, when I was in 3rd phase, and we're learning how to shoot pistol, we're learning how to shoot rifle, there were guys that did their own preparation ahead of time, right? And they definitely were ahead of everybody else. They were ahead of me, they're ahead of the curve. I was that empty template to work with, right? I was that blank slate. And as the instructors were teaching us step by step, I didn't have any bad habits that had to be overwritten. And so eventually I caught up to a lot of these guys that had been doing a lot of shooting before and then surpassed them. And the way I was able to surpass them, I was that blank slate, right? Whereas these guys had bad habits. And bad habits, bad pathways, they are difficult to undo once they're there. They're kind of always there, right? And so when it comes to like the disciplines of that nature, I would say, man, you can show up to buds having never pulled the trigger on a gun before, and they will teach you. You will be just fine. And before you ever get there, you got to get through a whole lot more, right? And so that would be my advice. Not so much what are the do's, but the don'ts. The do's, here's how you stay ahead of the curve, ahead of the pack. I would say the twin peaks of buds is running and swimming. Running and swimming. I never see anyone quit, ring the bell over all the push-ups we had to do, all the pull-ups we had to do, all the little, grinder PTs. I've never seen anyone quit during a grinder PT, but I have seen a lot of guys quit on the runs and on the swims and in the surf tortures. Here I go again. And so if you could just show up to buds, being able to run like the wind and swim like a fish, you're gonna be so ahead of the rest of the pack. Here's what I mean by that. When I showed up, I'm kind of a bigger guy now, but I weighed about 140, 145 pounds when I showed up to buds. I wasn't a real big muscular guy, but I was in the front of that pack on the runs. I was one of the fastest swimmers in the class. And so that part of buds, where a lot of guys were suffering a lot, it was a breeze for me. And that's really your goal. No matter what, no matter who you are going to suffer at buds, but not everybody suffers the same, right? Something that might be easy or breeze to you might be that point where other people are already beginning to suffer. And so what's your goal? Well, your goal would be minimize, gotta get these 5 again, minimize that parameter of suffering. If you think of it like maybe redlining, your RPMs on an engine, you want to spend as little time in that red line zone. Guys that show up unprepared, not being a good runner, not being a good swimmer, it's like they are redlining the whole time. They are suffering so much more than a lot of the other people, and it's unnecessary. And so people don't like to put that work in. It's the running and the swimming. Instead, they think, oh, if I'm gonna go to buds, I need to go hit the weight room. I need to get all jacked, strong, muscular. No, that's not conducive to being a good runner and a good swimmer. Maybe you can hit those things, you start hitting the gym and the weights a little bit more once you get through buds into SQT or into a team. But while you're going through buds, it's all body weight exercises, right? It's all calisthenics. And these guys that are real big and muscular, those muscles require something, don't they? They require oxygen. And they don't last very long. They might be strong out the gate in the very beginning, but they burn out. I remember the first time I was on a log during log PT, and right next to me, this guy fills in. And he's got these giant biceps. I'm thinking, good, we got this big brute force muscular dude on our log to help us hold this log up. And remember at the time, I'm like this little 140 pounder, super wiry guy. Well, to my surprise, this is the day I learned what it means to be muscle bound. To my surprise, this guy that's next to me, probably like 2 minutes into the log PT, and we got 4 hours to go. This thing is called Circles of Death. It's something you all have to look forward to, all right? Like 2-3 minutes into it, here we go again. Arc. This guy with these giant arms, by looks, he puts me to shame. He's gotta be so much, stronger, right? Than me. Now, this guy's bent over on the log, literally falling over on the log. He can't lift his giant biceps anymore, and he's just leaning over, and the rest of us are carrying this guy around. And I remember being so caught off guard by that, just so perplexed, looking at his size. Why is he so weak right now? And that's where I learned what it means to be muscle bound, right? So we got some of the things not to do. Don't get too much into the technical disciplines of like shooting and moving. You don't have to get into scuba, diving or anything like that. I would say spend plenty of time in the ocean though. Spend time in the water, become a good swimmer, right? And that is part of the do's. Cover the don't do's and the do's. Chiefly, the twin peaks of buds. Remember this. What are the twin peaks? I call it the twin peaks of buds. It's running and swimming. If you're good at those things, I would say as far as the physical side of things goes, you got the majority of it covered. Yep. All right, here we go. Let's see what else we got. So, another question from you guys. What was your favorite? These are like a lot of SEAL and SEAL training questions. What was your favorite thing about being a SEAL? Well, I would say my favorite thing about being a SEAL was the fact that you get paid money. You get paid money to shoot guns, blow things up, jump out of airplanes, and hunt down bad guys. Not only do you get to do those things, you don't have to pay to do it, you get paid to do those things. And so, no doubt about it, that's one of the huge benefits, favorite things about being a SEAL. 5 more, hurry up. I forget if I covered this in this video or not, because this is the second video. But on these burpees, I think it's important to do what I guess sometimes gets called strict burpees. When you drop down, do an actual push-up. Don't do what you see these guys doing in CrossFit competitions, where they're just dropping down and kind of sprawling like an MMA fighter, just kind of touching their hips and going. If they're competing and that's acceptable, and they're competing with a bunch of other guys who are going to be doing that, then obviously you gotta compete on that same level. But if we're really trying to get some good work done here, right? The biggest bang for our buck, let's make our form as strict as possible. So you drop down in that push-up position, do a push-up, and then come back up from a deep squat and jump up. None of these like little half jumps or barely, none of like these little barely standings. Like, right, jump up, earn it, put in the work hard now, play later. That's 3 right here. It's nice and warm out here in Huntington Beach. Yeah, so I just wanted to get this recorded full for you guys. 5 isn't too tough for me, every minute on the minute. I usually use this as a warm up or a cool down, right? And I can start pushing it a little bit more up in those numbers, but I did want to be able to speak while I did this video as well. Okay, here's a great question. And this came in a lot of different forms. How do I increase my mental toughness? That's a great question because that applies to everybody. This isn't just for guys going through SEAL training. Everybody could benefit from more mental toughness. It makes you a more valuable human being, because you're that person then that can sort of carry the weight. You're that person that literally can carry the weight because you know how to mentally push through physical pain. But there's other aspects to mental toughness that are very beneficial as well. You know, who knows? Maybe you work a 9 to 5, but for whatever reason, something's going on at work, and you're gonna have to pull an all-nighter. You're gonna have to burn the midnight oil and go through sleep deprivation. Well, in order to succeed at that, you gotta have some mental toughness. If you're a mentally weak person, you're not gonna be able to endure that sleep deprivation. And so there's a line in our SEAL creed. Or think of it this way. What about when, you know, your family falls on hard times? It goes through adversity. Maybe you get some really bad news. Are you going to be that person that has to be picked up? Or are you going to be that person that could be leaned upon in that moment? That dad that can be there for his spouse, that could be there for his kids. That mom, right? That can not be a liability, but an asset to the family, the one that's able to be strong. You know, when you get some bad news of some sort, well, the mentally weak people, they're gonna have to be taken care of, right? We wanna be mentally tough. We wanna be that person that is an asset to, you know, our fellow human beings, citizens around us, right? Maybe some car broke down and it's cold outside. You know, it's in the middle of winter and it's raining and nobody's helping that person because they don't want to go out in the cold and they don't want to go pushing a vehicle. Well, a mentally tough person, they're gonna say, hey, mind over matter. I don't care how I feel. I feel the same cold you feel. I feel the same pain that you feel. But I have this ability to take my mind and I overcome my feelings. And so how do we get to that? How do we get to mental toughness? So that's why I say this is like, mental toughness is whole life stuff. It applies to the corporate world, the construction world, the stay-at-home mom, you know, the military. It's whole life stuff. So part of our SEAL creed, it goes like this. You can look it up. It says that we have, in the SEAL teams, the ability to control our emotions and actions regardless of the circumstances. Think about that. Ability to control your emotions and actions regardless of the circumstances. What are some circumstances that might cause somebody to lose control of their emotions and actions? Well, it all depends, right? We got first world problems nowadays that causes people to lose it. So before we touch on like what does mental toughness look like, here's the next round. Let's take a look at what the antithesis, the opposite of mental toughness is. And so the opposite of mental toughness is that person that loses their ability to control their emotions and actions in a situation. And that situation could be, for a lot of us, something that we don't even consider to be a situation, right? First world problem. But the problem is this person's never had to endure. This person's never really had to persevere through anything. Maybe they've always had the easy life, fed from the silver spoon. And so now when they go driving through McDonald's and the drive-thru gets the order wrong, that person's circling back around. True story, this really happened. They're so mad of their circumstances and the situation, they're circling back around and they start putting bullets through that drive-thru window. All right, that is someone that is not mentally tough. That is somebody that can't even handle like first world problems not going their way. You know, it's that type of person that really freaks out in a restaurant when their cold water gets brought to them. Oh, you forgot my lemon. You didn't put a lemon in my cup, right? And they make a big old scene because they don't got the lemon on the rim of their cup. It's like, dude, get over it. First world problem, right? You are not mentally tough. You are not an asset. You are not helpful to other human beings. You are somebody that has to be babied and pampered. So how do we become mentally tough? Well, it's a lot like, I got 5 minutes to share this. There are certain things that mentally wipe people out, right? Just like there are certain things that physically wipe people out. What is something that could physically wipe you out? A lot of things. How about we go back to 9/11 days? There's a white powdery substance that was getting shipped around through the US Postal Service, not by them, but through them, called anthrax. And people were opening up envelopes, and anthrax is a deadly bacteria. And so they open up that package, out comes this white powdery substance, and over the lips, through the gums, watch out lungs, here it comes, they've inhaled, ingested anthrax. And it's lethal. It will physically destroy them, kill them. Well, military is a little bit concerned. You know, what if our frontline workers come into contact with this lethal thing? So they decide, let's find a way to make them physically tough, not mentally tough, physically tough against anthrax. Well, how do you do that? It'll kill you. The way you do that is through a series of shots, a series of watered down shots, tapered down versions of anthrax. And as the body encounters these watered down or tapered down versions of anthrax, what happens? Your body begins to develop a toughness. Your body begins to develop a tolerance towards something, so that after these series of watered down shots, by the end of it all, you've been exposed to so many watered down versions of it that theoretically now, if you encounter what normally would have been physically lethal before, you should be able to endure. All right, there's something that could be learned from that, right? That's how you develop physical toughness against something. You don't just jump right in to the lethal amount. You expose yourself to a watered down version of it. Now for mental toughness, what are some of the things that are mentally lethal, right? If you make it to Hell Week in SEAL training, the goal is not to physically break you down. Trust me, you are physically gonna be hurting like you've never been hurt before. But the goal there is to mentally break guys. And so you get told, hey guys, if you've made it this far, physically speaking, you have what it takes. You got it. The goal here isn't to physically break you down. You have the hardware. Our goal now, we're gonna test your mind. But how do they do that? How are they going to mentally break guys? They mentally break guys with physical suffering. So if that's what breaks you mentally, if there's such a thing as a sort of lethal dose mentally, which comes via physical suffering, how might we develop a mental tolerance or a mental toughness towards those things? Well, by way of analogy, just like that anthrax. You don't just go in and take a lethal hit right off the bat. You'll be done for, right? Don't just try and jump in and try and do what a SEAL does, in a day. What you should do is expose yourself to watered down versions of it. For example, and we're coming up on the end here of the workout at least. One of the things that is just awful during SEAL training is surf torture. Surf torture is kind of like it sounds. It's torture in the ocean. I went through in February where the water temperature is at its coldest, and it's so cold it takes your breath away, and you start shivering, and that shivering turns into what we call jackhammering, because it looks like you're hanging onto a jackhammer, and you feel like you're gonna die, but you're not. That's just your body. You have to be mentally tough. So your stimuli, your body says, get out of here. I'm uncomfortable. I don't like this. How am I going to be able to endure this? Because this is going to mentally be lethal to some guys. This is going to cause guys to mentally break. Well, you could do some preparation in advance. I used to think that you could not develop mental toughness. I'm totally wrong. You can. It could be developed. And so what you do, and that was the end of it right there. 20 minutes, 100 burpees. Let me just finish up this point. What you do is you take things that normally would mentally break people and you expose yourself to it in a tapered down or watered down version of it. What does that look like for surf torture? Well, maybe it goes like this. When you get up in the morning, take your shower, but determine in your mind that for the last 30 seconds, start easy. The last 15 seconds of the shower, I'm gonna turn that water temperature to as cold as it could go. What's gonna happen? Well, especially if you live in a cold environment where the water really does get cold in the pipes, you're gonna feel very uncomfortable. And that uncomfortable feeling is going to tell your mind, I don't like this, I wanna get out of here. And so what's the only thing that's actually gonna keep you there? Your mind. Mind over matter. Your mind says, no, I'm not getting out of the water right now. Even though the body wants to, the mind, my spirit, my will, I will not allow it to happen. When you are in that mode, when you're having to exercise that mental toughness to stay there, that's when you're actually doing what you want to be doing to develop mental toughness, mental strength. You're exercising it in that moment. That's where the gold happens. And so once you're able to do that, enough times, now you move on. Now you say, I'm going to stay in the water for 30 seconds this time, 45 seconds, a minute. Maybe to the point where now all you're doing in the morning is taking very cold, uncomfortable showers, and it's not for no purpose. When you're doing that, a lot of people might think that sounds stupid. No, that is like the only time where you could develop some mental toughness, where your body says no and your mind says no, you stay put. You're exercising your mind. Now, that's not the only way you could do it, right? What are the tools that instructors use to break guys? One of them is surf torture. We kind of touched on that. Another one's sleep deprivation. And this counts in the real world, right? Because you might need to burn that midnight oil. How could you be that person that stays up? It would be good to expose yourself to sleep deprivation from time to time. Definitely don't make that a daily part of your life, but expose yourself to it. You need to have know that feeling of really wanting to go to sleep, but your mind says, no, I'm staying put together here, right? That is the only time in those moments right there where the body wants to go one way and the mind says, no, we're staying here. That's the moment where mental toughness is finally getting worked on, right? No pain, no gain. So they use cold water, take cold showers. Sometimes it's sleep deprivation. Expose yourself to sleep deprivation. Become acquainted with it so that when called upon, you can actually do it. Not only in SEAL training, but like I said, this applies to the whole world. What if you have to do an overnighter for the sake of your family? Maybe you go through some type of, emergency, whether that be like flooding or tornadoes. And, now you got to work hard for your family through the night. That's why this mental toughness stuff, it's whole life stuff. It applies to everything. Another thing that they use is just sort of like physical pain and torture through hard workouts. Imagine a workout. Maybe you feel this way right now, like, I don't want to go on anymore. I don't want to push anymore. Well, now this no longer is a physical thing. Now it's the mind. Do you have the mindset? Can you work on that in that moment right there? Can you have that mind over matter? That's where the magic happens. You have to get to a point that actually feels really uncomfortable and push through it. If you want to develop mental toughness, that is how you develop it in sort of watered down, tapered down versions of what typically would be mentally lethal. Hell Week is mentally lethal. It wipes people out. But if you've tapered yourself, if you've prepared yourself for it, just like that anthrax, if exposed to it, hypothetically speaking, I've had tapered down versions of it. And so what would normally kill somebody, I have a tolerance, I have a toughness towards. In a very similar way, what normally would mentally wipe somebody out, if you're actually preparing your mental toughness through watered down versions, well, then you will have a toughness and a tolerance towards things that normally would just be mentally lethal to people. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and got something out of it. You guys had really good questions. There's so many more questions. Maybe I could use these for another video sometime. But there you go, 100 burpees in 20 minutes. And like I said, it's totally scalable. If you need to knock it down a few notches, knock it down a few notches. If you're in really great shape guy or gal, hey, bump it up. Maybe do 6, 7, 8, get it up to 10. I don't know, is it even possible to do more than 10 every minute on the minute for 20 minutes? Somebody out there can do it. But there you go, no excuses. You always got 20 minutes in a day. You could find those 20 minutes. And if you can give me 20 minutes, I pretty much can give you 100 burpees, or at least let's get you to a point where you're getting there and accomplishing something. So I had a good time with you guys. Again, hope you enjoyed this video. And hey, if you like the shirt that I got on, man, it's sweaty. You can hardly see it now. It's a great little workout shirt. It's one of my favorites. And the SEAL teams are known as frogmen. And we wear the bone frog to honor and remember fallen frogmen. But it also has a cross in the bone structure. And that cross, you know, the bone frog honors SEALs that have shed their blood for our earthly freedoms. And the the cross honors the Savior who shed his blood, not for our earthly freedoms, but for our eternal freedoms. And on the back of the shirt, it says, greater love is no one than this, one that lays down his life for his friends. That's what the SEALs did for your earthly freedom. And that's what the Savior did for your eternal freedom. Really enjoyed this time with you guys. Again, more videos to come. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're on my email list. Follow me on social media. All right, I'm out.